So anyway, hello everybody. It's LynHarris here of Heart at Work, and welcome back to the show of creating an impactful legacy. So one of the reasons I really created this podcast was to help executives and nonprofit and leaders in the field to help them to become better in their business and also for workplace productivity, wellness, all those good things that we all want, but we don't know how to do. So, so if you want to know more about me, you just go to my website. And so today I have on the call with me is Robert Aigner, right? Did I pronounce that right?
It's Aigner.
Aigner, Robert Aigner. Should have asked before we started.
No problem.
Robert Aigner. And we were talking about workplace culture and how he coaches and works with leaders, and kind of intrigued me because that's part of what the podcast is about. So welcome, Robert, and I really look forward to our conversation today. And so could you tell us a little bit about how you got started? I always think that's kind of cool. So how did you get started doing what you're doing?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. First of all, I love the theme of your podcast and your business. So it's an honor to be a part of this. So I am a coach in the real estate space. I'm a real estate brokerage owner, and I also have my own podcast called Clear Choices. I think the thing that most drew us together was what I do in the coaching world, which is very much applicable to how I run my businesses as well.
Right.
So within Keller Williams, I work for Keller Williams. It's the largest real estate company in the country, and they have the largest coaching organization of any industry within their doors. It's called MAPS Coaching.
Okay.
And and so you have to go through quite a stringent approval process to be qualified to become a coach within that system.
Mm-hmm.
Some people focus on coaching agents. Some people focus on coaching office managers or office owners and all different other categories within our system.
Right.
I'm a leadership coach exclusively. Mm-hmm. And what I really love about that is that a couple of things. First of all, every person I speak to, they're in different parts of the country. They have different challenges. They have different strengths. And so doing a needs analysis and kind of understanding what's in the way of someone succeeding at their highest level, or what the opportunities are that they might not be seeing, and being a part of that is really gratifying for me. So I love that part of my work. Also, I really learn a lot from my clients.
Right.
Not sometimes from their successes, sometimes from their challenges or failures, but also just from the fact that I'm dealing with one person in Florida and one person in Illinois, another person in California, and the approach to various challenges is going to be different from a regional perspective or a cultural perspective or a perspective of how business is conducted. And so I think it just makes me a better person myself to be working towards helping others be their best selves, if that makes sense.
Right. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, maybe you could just tell us what your definition is for being a leader.
Sure. In the company I'm involved with, it's either an office owner, someone who's actually the person who invested in the franchise, the person who's the manager. We call it a team leader. So they're running that organization. It might be a 300 agent organization. And then we have a couple other staff positions who either people who deal with the finance or people who do coaching on productivity for the agents. And so there's about 5 or 6 roles within an office that we consider leadership. And so I'm usually coaching one or multiple of those people within an organization.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest obstacles that the people that you coach actually face? What's some of their biggest challenges or obstacles they have?
Sure. I would say that, maybe the first one is themselves. I think the first one that they normally face is limiting beliefs of some kind. And so my job is to always kind of dig down and challenge them to consider that their limiting belief doesn't necessarily have to be true. So I'd say that's, honestly,
Yeah.
the most common one. People are always saying to me, oh, that's not how it is in Florida. That's not how it is in Santa Barbara. That's not how it is in Chicago, whatever that place,
Right.
it's different here.
Right.
So they have this limiting belief that what can be done in other places can't be done where they are.
Right.
So that's the first thing. I would say another really common challenge is
Yeah.
if people or when people don't hire well enough.
Right.
They hire out of desperation or impatience, as opposed to hiring quality and hiring someone that's going to make their organization actually better. So I
Right.
think that's sometimes really limiting too, if they hire out of just, I don't want to interview any more people, so I'm going to take this person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so do you think that hiring issue is a real problem then? Because, I noticed that when companies are hiring, like you were saying, they'll find somebody and they'll pick it and they'll say, oh, that person didn't work out, rather than maybe, is it just a bad fit, do you think? Or do you think it is really just about they're in a hurry to hire somebody?
Well, I think it's a two-way street, meaning they're in a hurry or they don't do enough due diligence. They don't, do enough
Yeah.
reference checking. They don't really
Okay.
get to know the candidate well enough to see if they're a match. I mean, no,
Right.
I don't know if anyone can see what I'm doing right now, but I'm lining up my hands. And so, hands can be two hands can look like one, or
Right.
two hands can be completely crisscrossed, and there's no lineup in terms of skill set and the position, et cetera. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the things that we do within Keller Williams Real Estate is we give every candidate a behavioral assessment.
Okay.
And it's a very in-depth assessment. And
Mhm.
we spend hours and hours with candidates going through validating whether or not the traits that this assessment demonstrated are actually true for that person. And so we
Mhm.
spend a lot of time on that. Like when I hire people, I just hired a manager in one of my locations, and he was just blown away by how many interviews we came back and kept having. And I probably met
Right.
with him 5 times, and he met with other people in the organization. And he's like, I've worked for much bigger companies. I've never gone through this much.
Right.
So one is we put in the time. Another thing is, I would say, is that, like, for example, when you do a reference check, it's
Right.
really easy for someone to go, hey, Mary Lynn, or I guess Rob used to work for you. How was he? Oh, he was great. I'd hire him again. Okay, great. Thanks, Mary Lynn.
Yeah.
But what we do, or what I try to coach my people to do, is I'll call a reference, and
Mhm.
I'll ask until I can tell they're exhausted with their time. And then I'll say, who else do you know that knows this person
Right.
that's not on their list of references? And so
Mhm.
we call that going 3 deep, where we're going beyond who's on the reference list.
Right.
So those are just some examples of how you can go deeper in an interview process with a candidate to make sure they're a fit culturally for the job. I mean,
Mhm.
think about this, Mary Lynn,
Yeah.
like if you hire someone and they're not the right fit, they're going to
Yeah.
be unhappy.
Yeah.
They're not going to deliver the result you want. And then you got to eventually let them go and then find someone else. Well, what's the cost of that in terms of time and money?
Right.
It's a significant cost to your organization.
Yeah. And for the person that's trying to find the right place to be, right? If they're not
Yeah,
engaged, they're just there.
exactly. They're just there for a paycheck, and that's not
Yeah.
really a win for any of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think that most people aren't just showing up for a paycheck, but I could be wrong. But like you were saying, it's nice that you take the time to hire the right people for the right fit.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, what are some success stories you've had about, coaching people to leadership in your organization?
Thank you. That's a great question. I mean, I can think of many, but an example would be, a big part of what we do in real estate. I mean, the way we make more money as a
Mhm.
brokerage owners is partially, we either have to have our existing agents sell more real estate, or we have to bring more agents from outside that will sell more real estate. That's the
Right.
way we're gonna. So recruiting, therefore, becomes a big part of how we increase our market share and our profitability. And again, going back to limiting beliefs, there's been many times with people I coach or people who run organizations that I'm an owner of,
Mm-hmm.
who think, oh, that big agent, that $100 million producer, they're never going to come to us. I mean, they've been at that company, that other company for so long, and
Right.
they probably have a great deal, and they won't even talk to me. And I will sort of, again, try to peel back the onion on my client and say, well, how do you know that? Have you spoken to them? And why do you think that it wouldn't be possible? And then when I guide them to at least having the strength to building a relationship, and then nurturing that relationship, and then showing value to that relationship, and then eventually that big $100 million head turner sort of iconic agent comes over to the company. Not only have I helped them become a little more profitable that day, but I've also changed what they believe is possible forever.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so then that change, they just get them all to think bigger
Mm-hmm.
ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the possibilities are endless, but we have to have an open mind.
Exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's an example. I mean, and that's occurred many times, that example.
Right. Right. Okay. So you tell me, you've already told us that your client is within your organization, that you coach the people that are leading your organization in several positions within your company. And
Hmm.
so are there any other types of services or something that you provide, or do you go outside your organization at all, or just stay within?
I'm allowed to, but I don't, just because
Okay.
I'm busy enough with what I
Okay.
do. But I will say something that's sort of not related directly to work that I do that I think will answer your question. So one of the things that I do, my parents are both Holocaust survivors,
Right.
and they're now in their, my dad's 90 and my mom's 82, but they have spoken publicly at schools, at places of business, churches, synagogues, etc. They've spoken for 30 years to
Right.
literally hundreds of thousands of people, and I've witnessed firsthand multiple times the massive and positive impact that's had on people to give them perspective. And so as they've started to get to the age where doing public speaking events was a little taxing for them,
Mm-hmm.
I started taking on that mantle. So I do public speaking engagements, particularly telling my parents' history, their story,
Right.
I don't like to call it a story, their history, their
Right.
experience during the war. But more importantly than their experience during the war is the choices they made on how to respond to that, the resiliency that they showed, and all the positive things they've given back to the world since having gone through, lived,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing 2 concentration camps and the ghettos and all these things that they went through. They have since uh, helped build a Jewish museum in their hometown of Portland, a Holocaust memorial. They've helped pass state legislation in Oregon that Holocaust and genocide education is mandatory in the school system. They've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. So this legacy that they created out
Mm-hmm.
of something dark, but this positive legacy they created is something that's really, I'm passionate about, and I think it's
Right.
really in alignment with what you do with your work. So I do public speaking on that
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit, and I feel like that's a amazing way to keep their legacy alive and also make a big positive impact.
Right. Right. Great. Thank you for sharing that, because I know you mentioned that before when we were speaking about their parents' legacy and what they've left. So my question next to that is, what are you doing to create an impactful legacy?
That's awesome. Well, valid question. Well, I think that you know the first and obvious thing I will say is, like, I'm a father of two boys, a
Hmm.
16 and a 13-year-old, and it's got to start at home.
Right.
So whether it's helping my boys be the best they can be in school and athletics and just being good people, that's first and foremost, because they're going to touch hundreds of lives in their or
Right.
thousands of lives in their lifetime. So that can make a huge impact. I think I really make a conscious effort of being a strong partner to my wife, and I don't mean just I'm there and I'm supportive. I mean, like, we challenge each other
Right.
to be better. And so I think that's a contribution. But then I know, beyond that and beyond what I do in the work world or even with my podcast, um, I'm, I guess, as being an example to my kids,
Hmm.
we're constantly doing some sort of community outreach. Like
Right.
right now with this COVID-19 dilemma that we're all faced with, I've reached out to my local synagogue and said, are there any elderly people that need groceries? And so
Right.
we're delivering groceries to some people that need it. We go to local soup kitchens, once every
Hmm.
couple of months with the family, the kids, and everybody, and just serve meals. I'm on the board of directors for a youth sports charity, and I've been actively involved in that for 6 years. It's called Kids Off the Street. So I've
Right.
been actively involved in that for a long time. But I think more important than all that, because those are all doings, those are things that you do,
Right.
that one does, and that's not, it's important.
Yeah.
But I think the ultimate thing is that, and I'm not perfect at it, but I'm always intending to just be a good person.
Right.
I'm always intending to, steal from your theme, to be kind. It doesn't always work. I mean, I have my moments when I get cut off in traffic or whatever the stereotypical thing is. I have my moments where I'm like, I wasn't as kind as I wished I had been.
Right.
I'm not perfect, but
Of course
I
not.
really do try and
Yeah.
intend to be as kind and as calm and as reasonable and rational as I can be. And again, I make mistakes. I'm constantly growing. I'm constantly challenged to do what I just said,
Hmm.
but I'm conscious of also trying to be the best me I can be. And I think that's the biggest thing I can do.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. I mean, like, I'm not perfect at being kind either, but I do my best, and that's all we can do is to be our best. And I love
Exactly.
that you are active in the community. You're doing different things. That's so cool. And so, do you have any final words or anything that you want to say to about being a leader and within your organization?
Yeah, I think ultimately, everyone's heard the example of lead by example.
Right.
Um, but ultimately, I think so many people in the workforce or in family life, just in the world in general,
Right.
they think of leadership uh, as a positional thing.
Right.
Like it's a badge they get to wear, and it's like it means that they are above other people, and it means they don't have to do certain things that they're asking their people to do. And again, I'm not always perfect at this, but I
Yeah.
believe and I intend to always act like my role as a leader is to lead by example and to roll
Hmm.
up my sleeves and be willing to do what I'm asking my people to do. And I think that when you do that, that you're being authentic and you're connecting with people and you're helping people grow by showing them maybe
Right.
something that you can do possibly at a higher level than they can or whatever. And so you're helping the whole organization grow by getting into the weeds and leading by example and doing it.
Yeah, yeah, getting into the messy stuff and into the dirt. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, Robert. I so enjoyed our conversation, and maybe we can do an update in a few months and see where you're at. That'd
I
be
would
awesome.
I would I would love that. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. And you'll find Robert over at the podcast.hardatworkonline.org. He'll have a page there, and of course, he'll be on Anchor as well. So if you have any other questions, I'll have all his information on that page, and um, I'll issue it out to Robert so he can share it if he wants to. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you very
Thanks.
much, everybody. And have yourself a great day, and always be kind. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.